All right, sorry about that, you guys. We're running a little late, and I had to get pictures set up for our awardees. So now it's my privilege to have the SBIR Advanced, the CTC-led SBIR Advanced program, and then we're going to honor, also at the end, we have a video on all the SBIR awardees and SBIR Advanced awardees that is kind of the conclusion with a video. So with that, they can come up.
Thanks, Lisa. Aaron Hager told us about music, and so now I'm going to say we did it too, so it's very exciting. Thank you guys for being here. So we're going to have a discussion around the federal SBIR program and the local state-funded SBIR Advanced program. My whole hope in this is that we get a chance to answer any of the questions that you have, but explore some of the nuances around the reasons for going after and to be competitive in the federal SBIR program, as well as the reasons for, the benefits of, and how to be competitive in the SBIR Advanced program. A little bit about SBIR. How many of you are very familiar with the federal SBIR program? Has anybody applied for or received SBIR funding? Oh, a few hands. Oh, okay. So are the majority here because you're kind of interested in and maybe are looking for a future application? Can I see those hands? Okay. And the rest of you are just here to just be curious, right? Maybe? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Fantastic. Okay, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with the federal SBIR program, it is now communicated as a $3.7 billion program. It's a lot of grant funding that goes towards new technologies. The intention of the program comes from the spirit that it really is difficult to, you have to bridge the gap between very early phase technologies and really assessing the feasibility of those technologies and making them venture ready or angel ready or partner ready down the road. And so the intention of the federal program is to fill that gap between very early stage, high risk, high technologies, and later funding. The cool thing is that there's 11 different agencies that participate in the SBIR program. Here, I think we're mostly interested in NIH and some NSF, but what we try and communicate through CTC is that there's Homeland Security, there's Department of Education, there's USDA. Department of Defense happens to be the largest funder, and they do fund things that are odd sometimes, like breast cancer. So the goal that we have in CTC is to bring awareness and to help you negotiate and navigate the program. But with that introduction, my main goal here was to help to have Lisa and Jean tell us about their own experiences and help you kind of see through their point of view the value, the experience, and how to navigate this program. So let me go back to my notes here. So Lisa, let me go back to my first one. Okay, sorry. Jean, tell us about Calimetrix experience applying to the federal SBIR program.
Okay. So as a bit of background, Calimetrix was founded in 2016. We had originally gone through the University of Wisconsin's Discovery to Product process, D2P you may have heard of. Founded the company after that. And what Calimetrix does is we design, manufacture, and build test objects for quantitative MRI. Test objects in the field are known as phantoms. So MRI is transitioning from being a qualitative imaging modality where the machine generates a picture or image that's interpreted by a radiologist who then writes a report and it's sent to the referring physician. It is transitioning to being quantitative where the MRI machine would generate a map where the brightness of each pixel has meaning. For example, a fat fraction map or an iron concentration map. And what Calimetrix is doing is we make the reference standard objects so that the user knows if the MRI scanner is giving the right answer or the wrong answer for these quantitative applications. We have been fortunate enough to get a phase 1 STTR, a phase 2 SBIR, and a phase 1 SBIR Advanced grant. And we chose to pursue the SBIR, STTR funding mechanisms so that we could really grow the value of the business and reach higher milestones before we sought venture capital or angel investment that would be more dilutive. And so that is kind of the history and why we did it. In terms of the challenges of writing the grants, so all of the founders had positions at University of Wisconsin in radiology or medical physics. And we were talking at lunch about how writing grants in that space to the NIH it's not hypothesis-driven grant writing, it's more milestone-driven grant writing. So actually writing the research plan for an SBIR or STTR for us was very similar to what we were used to in writing in our UW jobs, which is very different than if you're in basic science, where you're doing more hypothesis-driven grants, aims, and things. So we were fortunate in that way. Where we ran into challenges was more when we were applying for the Phase 2 award, you have to write a commercialization plan, and that was something none of us had ever done, and that's something that the SBIR Advanced program really helped us with, and I think we're going to talk more about that later, right?
Sure, and I think we can transition. There's a couple of questions that I'll go back to, but
Okay.
I want to go ahead and bring Lisa into this conversation. A component of this program is to talk about the state-funded SBIR Advanced program. So SBIR Advanced, if you're not familiar, is intentionally designed to help fill the gap in funding that the federal program does not allow. So if you get an SBIR and STTR, and we should mention a little bit about the differences in a little bit, but if you get one of those federal funding grants, those pay for the technology development and personnel and resources related to that technology, which is absolutely fantastic. But it doesn't pay for any of the business-related expenses that it takes to move this business forward. And so some of the states have brought forward this matching program, and Wisconsin is one of the few programs, states that has put forward this, and it is funded by the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. So we are, in CTC, very lucky to administer the program since 2000. Tell us a little bit about Semba's journey and the value of the SBIR Advanced program, knowing that it's really just kind of a small chunk of change for this.
Sure. Am I being loud, or am I going to try to use my mic?
I'll
be loud.
Just keep going.
So that's true. We did use the CTC. I think they're called micro grants when we were applying for our Phase 2 grants. And if you are going to consider applying for a grant, I recommend looking into that program too. It funds a matching grant to hire a technical writer to help you with the grant application process. So we used the CTC for a tech writer to kind of organize the project, and a second one to assist with our commercialization plan, because that was a challenge for us as well. And we had a lot of experience commercializing products, so it was harder than we thought it would be. But Semba's not a company that relies on grants. We've received 3 in the course of our company, 2 Phase 1s and 1 Phase 2. And we were talking at lunch a little bit. It was an internal debate even within our company as to if we should apply for a second grant. Half of the people thought it was going to be too much work and the wait was too long, and we were
For a second Phase 2 federal SBIR
yeah, for the federal program.
Yeah.
And a couple of us were really advocating for it. I said, we'll write it. You guys just need to give us some technical information, and it ended up that it led us to where we are today. So Semba makes a continuous chromatography system. It's a benchtop R&D system was our initial product, and we had always seen the opportunity in the biopharmaceutical market to sell this product. But when we went to market in 2010, the pharma companies were not interested in talking with Semba at all. We're a tiny company. The continuous bioprocessing was not a big trend at the time, and our system didn't have some of the analytics it needed to be used for drug discovery or drug manufacturing. And so we saw an opportunity with the SBIR federal program to develop the process and to enhance the technology to be able to break into this market. And it was really fortunate that at the same time the FDA was calling for drug costs to come way down, for continuous biomanufacturing to take place, and so we were kind of ahead of the curve at the time. But our company is typical. We have a lot of scientists and engineers, and not a lot of people who want to do marketing or go out and commercialize the product. And so we missed the opportunity to be on the phase 1 SBIR advance. I think you're going to talk a little bit about the lean startup. I really wish we could have done that because I think it would have been beneficial for us. But we received 2 SBIR advance awards from the state, one for our first year of our phase 2 grant and one for the second year. The first year, honestly, we made a mistake. We spread ourselves too thin. We thought we could do a lot more with the $75,000 than we could. So we had 3 objectives. 2 of them were very technical and related to development that we hadn't anticipated in our budget cycle. And only one of them was actually focused at all on commercialization. So it was good. We got some work done, but we didn't see a big impact on our project from it. We applied for the year 2. We were actually turned down by the SBIR Advanced program. I think we were still a little too scattered, and there were a lot of other companies that were deserving of funding. And so the next cycle, we applied again immediately. And that time we were really focused. We were almost done with our federal grant. We had a product that we were ready to launch to the market, and so our entire phase 2, year 2 application was focused on launching that product line. We planned to launch at 1 show in the US and 1 show in Europe. We engaged a couple of consultants that were working part-time for us on the commercialization team full-time, and I think we developed some marketing collateral. So we made some pop-up banners and a video that demonstrated some of the software we were developing. And it's funny now, it was really awful at the time. We went to Bioprocess International in Boston. We spent more money on that trade show than we had probably spent in the previous 2 years on marketing. We sent 4 people, we got a booth, we had our collateral, and we were ready to make sales, and our largest competitor, who is Paul, who is huge, launched their competing product at that same show. Their booth was 4 times the size of our booth. Where we had our valve block and pump and some little pieces of technology, they had their GMP system, which is like, I don't know, the size of the floor here. They sponsored an exhibit booth, and so it was like we were barely even at that show from a sales perspective. But what we did get was a couple of companies that were interested in acquiring our company or partnering with our company. It's no secret, we had 10 employees. We were looking to be acquired by a larger strategic partner, and so we had these 2 pretty good meetings. One of them dropped out almost immediately. What they wanted to pay for the business and what our investors wanted to make on the business were super far apart. But the other one, we proceeded with due diligence. They didn't end up investing in us. We had a business development person who was part of the advance grant, who went to Toso Biosciences, who we had worked with quite a bit in the past. Our director of R&D gave seminars for them. Their resin technology happens to be very suitable for the type of chromatography our system relies on. And she said, you gotta get in now, or this other company is gonna take the company, we're gonna come to some sort of agreement with them. So you have to get in now, or you're gonna miss your chance. And they did. They started due diligence. They're a Japanese company, so they're incredibly slow. We spent about a year giving them information, and they come back and we give them more information. And then last November, December, they made an investment in Semba with an intent to acquire. Now we have a couple of product development milestones that we need to hit, and then the ultimate goal will hopefully be they'll acquire the company. And it's crazy, but I really give so much credit to the advanced program for getting us to that point, because we wouldn't have been at that show to have those conversations to get to the point where now we have the cash we need to develop the products that we need to do to really have a complete portfolio for the biopharmaceutical market. So. I cannot encourage enough to participate in this program.
Right, and you know, the value that we're trying to communicate is that, I mean, the money was there, but you guys leveraged that. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to go off script here for a second and say, you know, what we haven't done is define some terms, SBIR versus STTR. So tell me a little bit about your experience in looking at that strategy. But then let's talk a little bit, let's be open about the money that we're talking about. I mean, SBIR Advanced Phase 1 match is 75, Phase 2 match is now 100,000. That's kind of a drop in the bucket for what it takes to commercialize products in your space. When you're looking at a federal SBIR Phase 1 technical award, it's like a $225,000 for 6 months. So talk to me a little bit about, as people are thinking, this is a little bit of money and a whole lot of work. What's that balance?
So for us, I mean, the fact that STTRs and SBIRs are amazing, right? They are funding your development of a new product and it's transformative. It really has been transformative. But those dollars are restricted. So you feel really rich, but you're really quite poor. And so, because you can't use it to develop marketing, you can't use it to do regulatory stuff, you can't use it to go to a conference, unless you're presenting a scientific presentation at the conference. I mean, there's just a lot of the things that you need to do that you can't use those dollars for. So the phase one, we got our phase one STTR, and we can talk STTR versus SBIR in a moment as well, but we got our STTR phase one, and then we applied for the SBIR advance for phase one. And there are really two ways that helped us. Number one is, okay, if I talk about the course here?
Please.
There's a coursework component to the SBIR advance phase one, and I'll be honest, at first we were like, oh man, that's, do we want to do this? It's a big commitment. Can we be there every, at 4 o'clock on whatever day it is every week, And we just sat down as a team and talked about it and decided, yeah, we're going to commit, And I think that committing is a big part of that application process too. You have to really say, we're committing to this process. But what it turns out is that coursework leads you through the process of gathering the data that you need to write your phase 2 commercialization plan. And for us, that was critical because that was the piece we were clueless on. And the homework that you do is interviewing stakeholders in your ecosystem. So, you're interviewing customers in different customer segments. We interviewed a lot of regulatory people. We interviewed GE healthcare people. We interviewed a lot of different people in the space and answered a lot of questions we had, and it drove the development of our phase 2 commercialization plan, but frankly, it really drove a reprioritization of our company goals, tasks, and milestones. We learned a lot. And, in the course, Idella and the other leaders are asking insightful questions, and that's very helpful as well. But I'll be honest, I was concerned going in, are they going to tell us the questions we have to ask? But no, it was really great because we could ask the questions we wanted to. We could go after, what are the key questions for us? What do we need to know about our customer segments in order to, sell our products and position this correctly? And we learned so much. And the other piece is that between doing the discovery to product process, the D2P at UW, and the phase 1 lean startup course, we had interviewed 90 people. And being able to say that in our commercialization plan gave us a lot of credibility. I think we could say we went through the lean startup process, we had interviewed all these stakeholders, and then here's the data. And they bought it, which is good. So I think that was really very, very helpful. It held us accountable. It was stuff we should have been doing anyway, but you get so caught up in the day-to-day stuff that you have to do that it's really hard to take the time to get on the phone and do a cold call, or reach out to somebody you've never met and say, hey, would you be willing to talk to me? Or call a friend and say, hey, can you connect me to that person?
Yeah.
And then the STTR and SBIR, so we decided to do the phase 1 as an STTR because there are different requirements for for the PI and also for the percent budget on. So stepping back, STTR and SBIRs can have subcontracts to academic institutions. And we were going to do a subcontract to UW. And so if you have an SBIR, then, and I think I'll get these numbers right, the PI has to be at least 50% or greater at the company. And STTR does not have that requirement. And then SBIR, I don't know the percentages exactly, but the greater percentage of the budget has to be at the company than for an STTR. There's more flexibility. And so when we were at the phase 1 stage, all of us still had our UW jobs. And so it was really tough to say, oh yeah, one of us is going to go greater than 50% at the company. At this point, I resigned my UW job, so I am fully at the company. And so we decided to transition to SBIR for our phase 2 because our program officer at the NIH told us that our odds were better in that pool. It was a bigger pool of money. And so he recommended that if we could do SBIR, to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway.
So I'm hearing there's definitely some strategy. There's a lot of terminology we've thrown out. I'll give a plug. I mean, that's what we are funded to do for free, provide a service and help you negotiate and navigate all the rules and regulations and whether or not this SBIR versus STTR is strategic and all that. So if you are curious about that and you want more information, you can talk to me afterwards. But what I think is a real learning experience for many is the value of sitting down and kind of writing that piece of document.
Yes.
So Lisa, I mean, you were telling us a story about kind of having the disagreement with your team about that. So help us kind of understand a little bit about where you guys kind of came to in that writing process, and what was the value from kind of that point to the now where you're at?
Yeah, I think the issue is it's a long process. So on the federal level, we applied for our phase one went pretty smoothly. We applied at the right time. We were kind of dumb about like what cycle should we apply to, and as far as I understand, they've changed the dates now. But so that went okay. But the phase two, we knew it was going to be a lot of work, and we weren't honestly sure if we could last that long to get that funding, because it was over a year from when we first applied to when we were able to draw the funds from the NIH. So I think at lunch I was telling them, we finally locked ourselves in a room. We spent over 4 hours working on one sentence for the grant application, which is insane to me. But it really, really, really made us decide what is the advantage to our technology? What are we targeting? What are we focusing on? And then from there it went a little faster, but I think it was the same. We were your typical small business where we'll do anything if you'll pay us for it. I mean, if we have the expertise in house and you're willing to give us a project, we would do it. And so we spent a lot of time. Some of our audience members have worked with us. We spent a lot of time just doing these projects that gave us enough money to keep the lights on and keep us getting paid. But this process made us decide, what are we going to do? What's our ultimate goal? To be acquired. How are we going to be in a market that will give the return to get acquisition? We're going to focus on biopharmaceutical. And just from there, it's just one decision after another that, nope, that's a distraction. We can't do that. We have to stay focused on this. So I think that was what really helped us as a company. We still struggle with turning down business. I just gave an estimate to a customer. We told them we weren't going to make a product anymore, and they keep asking us to. So we doubled our price, and I said, okay, well, we'll see if they'll do it. But we are a lot better at what is the purpose of our company? What are we trying to do? And then not doing all the other stuff.
Yeah. So we have about 10 minutes left in the session. Does anybody in the audience have any questions? Yeah.
So that's coming after you've already got the award. I've been through a few of these. The challenge I see is finding the grant that actually matches your existing company mission without knocking you off track. Do you have any suggestions on how to do that?
So, I mean, we just applied to the parent announcement for the NIH, and then you can put what your mission is. You're not restricted to a specific, funding opportunity announcement that agency has said. Now, different agencies are different. Like I know NIST, they actually put out funding opportunity announcements for SBIRs for MRI phantoms, but they say like, no, we want you to build this. They've basically designed the darn thing, and they want somebody to build it, and that is not what we wanted to do. We knew what we, were building, what our mission was, and so we went with the parent announcement.
Different agencies definitely do have different cultures and different topics, and so part of that challenge is kind of helping you to figure that out. What we always say is about 3 months. It takes about 3 months to apply, and because there's different deadlines, it's really hard to negotiate that. So again, we try and put that out in our newsletters, and we have different events to prepare for an NIH or the NSF. We have programs like our pre-submission panel reviews that kind of help you refine your proposals before they actually go in. So we in CTC have tried to create some value through programming that would help make that process better, from decision making all the way to submission. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our last round of funding too was from DOD.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think what we're seeing is a lot of the money's being pulled out of NIH and it's
Yeah.
put from DOD.
Yeah.
What needs to be done is still out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to become the
Yeah.
defense problem.
Yeah.
That's where the
Yeah.
is still there. And could you comment on that perhaps as a theory?
So we don't have personal experience, but I have a friend who also in the MRI space who applied for the DoD, and you sometimes have to get creative about how you spin the story. So they were coming up with a way to make an MRI system that could work on the battlefield. Well, there's lots of shrapnel and MRI is a big magnet, metal's bad, right? So there was, creativity involved, but they ended up getting the grant from the DoD. Right. So.
But yeah, I know what you mean. You can spend a lot of time reading the funding announcements and thinking, well, we could do that. Well, we could do that, but that's not the mission of our company right now.
Yeah,
And so we did the same. What got us into the the second phase 1 application we did was, it was just perfect for us. It was the NCI looking for novel devices for cancer therapies, and we could fit right in there as part of the process. But then when we went for our phase 2, that funding opportunity was closed. So then we just did the same. We applied under the general application, and we had a fantastic program manager who really just advocated for us. I think that was probably the biggest individual thing we did with our grant, was to stay in close contact with our program manager. Our phase 2 funding, she was there making the case for us, and I think that's why we got it. I think if we hadn't been giving her updates and talking to her, we would have just been kind of a number in the pile, but she did a great job kind of looking out for us.
And I would really agree. Our program officer, he actually called us when we were nearing the end of our phase 1, and he said, I have an extra $13,000 this year. Do you have any needs? And I was like, oh. So we had to write a little proposal, like 3 pages, and we got an extra $13,000 to buy some equipment. And he had a need to spend this money or he was going to lose it, and he knew us as a company, and we had been staying in touch, and it was amazing.
I do want to get a couple more questions, but just quickly, the opportunity with SBIR isn't always just in the the official SBIR program, that 225 or $1 million or whatever it is. The NIH, for example, has a series of other programs that are related to those who are in some SBIR funding. So there's funding to kind of help hire somebody kind of under supporting diversity. There's funding to help understand commercialization. They have this Bridges program. So NIH in particular is bringing on a number of ancillary commercialization programs where your front door is through SBIR. So it really does help if you're thinking about that and you're in this kind of complicated space, that the value of SBIR funding beyond just that initial award. Other questions? Yep. Yep, sorry.
Hi. So our company have just applied for the federal SBIR. I think you will probably know the result by the end of the year. I just would like to have a little bit understanding, when will be the good time for our company to start looking at the state SBIR advance?
Yeah. So we have funding deadlines in the fall and in the winter. So now is a great time to have a conversation. But we're going to do like a letter of intent that's due. That's our first step, and that's due in the end of January. Full proposals will be due very soon thereafter, and then awards will be made in like February, with the programming beginning in, say, March or so. So if you find out, it's always good to have a conversation sooner than later. Yeah.
So we don't have to wait until we know the results before we apply for the state funding?
No, it's because part of the challenge, I think, from the SBIR federal program and in our advanced program is really making sure you're communicating effectively in that proposal process. We want to help you make that case. So that's why talking to us early, we want to help you be successful.
Idella, I think you should brag a little bit more about just how unusual this program, as well as like the government coming in funding this, having an entity like CTC that most states do not support their entrepreneurs in this space. This is really quite unusual, and Gene, I really appreciate bringing up the lean start. Again, it's a lot of work, right? But it is trying to help you be more successful long term.
Yes.
And it's a kind of a new thought process, because so many do go on it. You can get your grants,
Yeah.
but then if there's no market,
Right.
you're not going to make it, right? So
Yeah.
I think you should
Yeah.
bit more, just to make sure entrepreneurs really know this is really an unusual model nationally.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for us to brag on ourselves because our success comes because the clients put in the work and reach out and let us work with them. But I mean, we've brought, our clients have reported over $50 million into the state in the last few years. We're going to have a little video that says some of this, over 400 jobs. The SBIR advanced clients, those who get the Phase 1 award, are besting the national average from conversion from Phase 1 to Phase 2. Wisconsin has been recognized nationally as amongst the highest top 3 and top 2 conversion rates from application to a Phase 1 award, and even from Phase 1 to Phase 2 from both NIH and NSF, so that's good chunks of funding. So, I mean, we at CTC very much care about your success and put in a lot of work, but we also deploy a network of skilled service providers that are made possible because of WDC funding and the microgrant. So it's not just CTC, Dave, Idella, and Todd, and Margaret. It's our service provider network that's across the state and those that are nationally recognized that you get access to because of the WDC funding. SBIR advanced funding, like I said, is made possible because of the WDC support, and we bring in resources that help us help us to help you communicate these impacts in your proposal.
And if I can just add too, I think because you guys exist and because SBIRs and STTRs have been so successful in Wisconsin, there is a network of adjacent service providers. Like using the SBIR Advanced Phase 1 money, we hired somebody to help us write our commercialization plan, an experienced person who had done a lot of these. And we, we have an accountant that is like specialized in like the, accounting of SBIRs, because there's a lot of questions. Can I charge this? Can I not charge this? Mm-hmm. And so it's the ecosystem is here to support you if you get one of these grants. And there are a lot of questions that come up too, so.
Yeah.
Well, and you have programs that you haven't even mentioned. I mean, we were talking a little earlier. They, a few times a year, do just how to apply for an SBIR grant, which I've been to several of them, not because we needed to be trained over and over, but because we had people that were speaking that we wanted to go to support. And every time I learned something that would have been really good to know before we made that mistake on our last application. So I think, I don't know how they go to find information if it's all through the SBIR Advance page, but I think just looking at what the CTC offers, there's a lot of things that you may not be aware of.
Yeah. I've been given the 1 minute. We have a video that we're going to show, but I really do encourage you guys to come and talk to us. Is there one final question? Yes? Yeah, yeah.
And there is, you talk about skilled labor, all this, an entire section of Wisconsin has been left behind.
Yeah.
And you,
Yeah.
there are people who are interested, including me, because you see the lack of opportunity. Here you say all these things have, in any conversation in Wisconsin, they talk Madison is the
Yeah.
best. Then you say Milwaukee has all this. What about the rest?
I'm glad you brought that up. So first, I'll talk a little bit about what we do infrastructurally. The CTC is funded to support the entire state. So it's not just Madison and Milwaukee. The way that we do that, because we have a small team, is we really leverage technology. So for example, our Phase 1 SBIR advanced programming, traditionally it's done in person if you do Lean Startup someplace else. We do it mostly through GoToMeeting, so that anybody from across the state can join us at our designated times. We will come to you. We have partnerships with, say, Wysis, who has networks across the UW system campuses around. So we do a lot of work with our partners in those communities. We try and do a lot of webinars, again, to try and bring people in. If you look at where SBIR advanced funding has gone to, there is a chunk in Madison because there's just a lot of research, but you'll see, I think we put it as like 18 other communities across the state have been supported through the SBIR Advanced Program, the state funding, and that doesn't include SBIR funding across the board in Wisconsin. One of my favorites is Whole Trees, and they are out of the northern portion of Wisconsin, and so, that was funding a USDA SBIR and some ancillary support through us. My other favorite one is our fish farming guy out of Black Creek, Wisconsin, another USDA, so it doesn't always have to be medical and big picture pharma and AI. I mean, his was to support a new way of farming walleye, because I guess walleye eat each other, and so this was to improve that in the rest of the state. So that's the word I really want to get out, is that SBIR is for a variety of different things, even though this conference is about health. So please come and talk to us, because, I will say one other thing, is if you come in the front door of SBIR, there are some other ancillary programs. So for example, NIH is funding SBIR supported companies to provide, to bring in, say, those students from technical colleges to get trained and work in that kind of SBIR funded company. So there's some other opportunities that way. Dave?
Probably only 3 people in this room know this, so I'm going to say it.
Do it.
SBIR Advance is a great program, and it only exists because of the brilliant insight and vision and passion of Lisa Johnson, who is the VP
Yes.
of Operations at WC.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We thank you.
Yeah, I fight for, for some of you who don't know, I have been involved in startups. I know how hard it is. It's really hard, and you need these grants. And so I really felt like this was something we need to do to support our entrepreneurs in the state. And WDC, when I worked there for 3.5 years, and we knew we had a good partner. We just spoke with Dave and Idella. I mean, we knew we had a great partner to manage, because it's taxpayer money, right? So we want, I think you need a trusted partner to manage this. And it really just says a lot about WDC and the support to entrepreneurs in this state, and that we have a resource like this. That's why I wanted to have bragging about CTC. So we have a video at the end here. We do want to honor our SBIR and SBIR Advanced awardees. You're going to see some big numbers on there, but we are going to see if we're going to blow up again.
No, it won't blow up.
Okay. Here we go. But let's give a round of applause first.
Go ahead and hit play.
Go ahead. It's kind of scary, right?
This thing just fried, so we're not
Do
using
we
it.
have any sound?
Hit play.
Because we have music. Of course.
this is networking time, then another fireside chat. We're kind of running like that 5 minutes late. Oh, wait, it's a little bit more. Yay.